The House will be in order. The prayer will be offered by Chaplain Kibben.
Would you pray with me? God of love and compassion, what a privilege it is to come before you on this day. You see us, you receive us just as we are. No matter how different we may be from one another, you care for us with the same depth of love, with no prejudicial regard for our differences. Take us then just as we are, whether we come from the east or west, north or south, left or right, whether we bring with us differing convictions or have needs that may seem in conflict with the desires of others. In you there is no distinction, for you, O God, are the Lord over all. Bestow on each of us the riches of your grace as we call upon you throughout the day. Pour out on us the overflowing fountain of your loving kindness, that each of us would know that all of us stand equal in our need of your redeeming grace. Then may we, transformed by the unity found in your love, look upon all those with whom we interact this day with your eyes, seeing in them what you see, those whom you have deemed worthy of dignity and respect. In the name of the one who is Lord of all, we pray. Amen.
Amen. The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceeding and announces to the House the approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson.
Everyone, including our guests in the gallery, are invited to participate. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair will entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to highlight the student-run cafe at Clearfield County Career and Technology Center. The cafe opened last week and gives students the opportunity to serve food to their peers. The program allows 18 students to participate in morning class and an additional 15 students to participate in the afternoon. High school students from Clearfield, Curwensville, West Branch, Phillipsburg, Osceola, and Moshannon Valley are eligible to enroll in the program. The cafe operates as a training lab, giving students the opportunity to apply skills they've learned in the classroom in real-life scenarios. Students help prepare ingredients, set up workstations, and create menus. Those who work the afternoon shift are responsible for making and serving food. The students develop leadership skill and professionalism, assets that are needed for a successful career in hospitality and culinary industries. Mr. Speaker, as co-chair of the Congressional Career and Technical Education Caucus, programs like this one at Clearfield County Technical School are vital for helping students be prepared for the workforce. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to rise and extend.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, over 130,000 Eastern North Carolinians depend on ACA subsidies to afford basic health coverage. Losing coverage would put families at real risk. These subsidies are not a handout. They are a lifeline that keeps working people insured, healthy, and able to see a doctor before a small problem becomes a huge crisis. Without Congress, premiums are skyrocketing, forcing too many residents to choose between health care, rent, and groceries. The consequences ripples through our communities, raising uninsured rates and driving up costs for everyone. ACA subsidies are about stability, dignity, and the simple belief that access to health care should not depend on luck. Congress must act to ensure accountability and to prevent millions of Americans from being left behind. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Across the country, arrests of criminal illegal aliens are successful as President Donald Trump is making good on his promise to rid communities of murderous threats to families, making sure killers, gang members, and other violent criminals are deported. The President is ramping up pressure to cooperate with law enforcement by sending immigration and customs enforcement officials. This is undermined by extremist-paid rioters. The January 14th Washington Times editorial stated, quote, "Leftists justify their behavior by reciting a version of events existing only in their imaginations." And Vice President J.D. Vance is correct. Officials are promoting rioting in the streets rather than follow the law. Knowing the President has their back, federal officials aren't intimidated fighting insurrection. The insurrection is a real attack on democracy. In conclusion, God bless our troops in the global war of terrorism continuing. President Trump is reinstituting peace through strength, revealing war criminal Putin lies, insulting Trump, mocking Trump, with Putin mercilessly launching rockets on civilian targets, murdering innocent Ukrainians. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. For what purposes does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, it is my honor to recognize Mr. Thomas Pelissero for his heartfelt tribute to his hometown of Bessemer, Michigan, in his new book, Bring One Home, a memoir of boyhood, basketball, and hometown spirit. This book is not only a salute to Bessemer, but the tough, resilient communities across Michigan's Upper Peninsula and Middle America. 60 years ago this week, the Bessemer Speed Boys basketball team ended a 42-game losing streak, at the time the longest in Upper Peninsula high school basketball history. Even though the people of Bessemer always showed up, cheered, and stood by their team, that loyalty and perseverance reflect the hearty spirit that defines this town and so many communities across our Upper Peninsula. That spirit remains alive today. Mr. Pelissero's book launch filled Bessemer City Hall to standing room only and raised more than $5,000 for the Bessemer Public Library. Since its release in November 2025, Bring One Home has earned national recognition to include inclusion in the Library of Congress. Mr. Speaker, it is my honor to recognize Mr. Pelissero for capturing the character, resilience, and enduring fellowship of Bessemer, Michigan, and the Upper Peninsula. We are all proud to call home. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair.
The House will be in order. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the chair will postpone further proceedings today on motions to suspend the rules on which a recorded vote or the yeas or nays are ordered, or votes objected to under Clause 6 of Rule 20. The House will resume proceedings on postponed questions at a later time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 3496, the Northern Mariana Islands Small Business Access Act, as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 350, H.R. 3496, a bill to amend the Small Business Act for microloan eligibility for the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Velazquez, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in strong support of H.R. 3496, the Northern Mariana Islands Small Business Access Act. This bill was introduced by Delegate King-Hines and Representative Conaway. The SBA microloan program provides entrepreneurs with access to small dollar loans that will qualify through intermediary lenders. Sometimes entrepreneurs do not need to access large sums of capital for their operations, but whereas the SBA microplan program can help entrepreneurs get just enough capital to meet their exact needs. Under current law, the SBA appropriations microloan program funding to intermediaries in 55 states and territories, and unfortunately, the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands is excluded. This creates unnecessary barriers for small businesses in the Northern Mariana Islands by limiting opportunities for local entrepreneurship and economic growth. H.R. 3496 fixes this oversight and ensures that the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands is included within the geographic scope of the SBA microloan program, increasing the number of states and territories eligible to receive microloan program funding from 55 to 56. Expanding eligibility for the microloan program will help spur entrepreneurship, strengthen local economies, and ensure that small businesses in all states and territories have a fair opportunity to grow. So I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 3496, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume. I rise in support of H.R. 3496, the Northern Mariana Islands Small Business Act. This is a straightforward but important bill that expands access to SBA microloan program to small businesses in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. These small businesses face unique challenges as geographic isolation leads to higher costs for goods and services, and their economy is heavily reliant on tourism, which can ebb and flow with the economy and natural disasters. Having access to affordable credit gives small businesses the ability to weather the storms and economic uncertainty and fully prepare for the next opportunity. The extension of the microloan program to CNMI will be critical to support business growth, create jobs, and stimulate the local economy. I have long supported efforts to ensure the territories have full access to SBA products and services. In previous Congresses, I worked with then Representative Sablan to establish an SBDC center in CNMI, and I also worked to ensure that CNMI have access to the microloan program as part of a more comprehensive bill. Unfortunately, the bill to improve the microloan program was not enacted into law. I am glad to working across the aisle again to make sure territory receive full access to SBA services. I urge members to support this important bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I now yield as much time as she may consume to my good friend, Ms. King-Hines from the great Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in strong support of my bill, H.R. 3496, as amended the Northern Mariana Islands Small Business Access Act. This bill would include my district, the Northern Mariana Islands, in the Small Business Administration's microloan program. The microloan program issues loans of $50,000 or less at low interest rates to help small businesses that may be unable to access capital elsewhere, grow their businesses, or create jobs. Since the program became operational in 1992, it has issued over 69,000 loans totaling over $900 million and supported over 250,000 American jobs. Despite the program's impressive impact for Americans across the country, the Northern Mariana Islands is the only state or territory not explicitly included under the law. This bill would simply add the CNMI to be eligible for the program alongside every other territory. The CNMI is currently facing an economic crisis following the collapse of our primary industry, which is tourism. Local small businesses are struggling to get approved for affordable loans, in part because of this economic uncertainty. Gaining access to this program could help local entrepreneurs make the investments they need to help put our economy on more solid footing. I thank my co-lead on the bill, Representative Conway, for his steadfast support, as well as Representative Cisneros and Goodlander for also co-sponsoring this legislation. I'd also like to thank Chairman Williams and Ranking Member Velasquez for their support and help in bringing this bill to the floor. Again, my bill simply adds my district to the microloan program that is already available to all other Americans. I urge all of my colleagues to support this bipartisan, common sense, no-cost bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield back.
Reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I have no further speaker. I'm prepared to close.
The gentlewoman reserved.
Madam Speaker, we have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman is recognized.
I urge my
The gentleman will suspend.
Madam Speaker, I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman suspends, yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Okay, Madam Speaker, we have no further speakers, and
The gentleman is recognized.
all right, and I want to thank you again, Madam Speaker, and I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 3496 to bring access to capital for small businesses in the Northern Mariana Islands, and I yield back.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill, H.R. 3496, as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 5763, the Main Street Parity Act.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 354, H.R. 5763, a bill to amend the Small Business Investment Act of 1958 to modify the criteria for loans for plant acquisition, construction, conversion, or expansion, and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Velasquez, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in strong support of my bill, H.R. 5763, the Main Street Parity Act. I would also like to thank my friend Representative Simon from the great state of California for joining me in co-leading this bipartisan effort. The SBA's 504 loan program is an important tool that helps small businesses obtain affordable financing for the acquisition of fixed assets such as land, buildings, and heavy machinery. To obtain a 504 loan, a small business owner must contribute 10% of the total project cost as a form of down payment. However, if a small business is seeking financing to build something like a surgery center or a nursing home, the SBA imposes additional equity requirements because these properties are deemed limited purpose. This initial equity injection was required because limited purpose properties were believed to be at a higher risk of default. Years of data show that this assumption is incorrect, and in fact, many businesses facing these increased costs were at a lower risk of default than the broader 504 portfolio. So it's time to bring parity to Main Street and remove the unnecessary lender barriers based on outdated assumptions. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on H.R. 5763, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume. Madam Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 5763, the Main Street Parity Act. One of the key functions of the SBA is to ensure that small businesses in communities across the country have access to the capital they need to grow and scale their operations. The SBA has long served this need through its loan guarantee programs, including the 504 CDC program. The 504 CDC program supports small businesses in accessing capital for the development of major fixed assets like land, buildings, equipment, and machinery. As part of the program, loans are guaranteed for so-called special use properties like amusement parks, car washes, bowling alleys, and gas stations. When the special use designation was created in 1996, Congress required businesses developing these properties to pay a special purpose penalty. The penalty requires these businesses to provide at least 15 to 20% equity instead of the minimum 10% for standard 504 CDC loans. While the additional equity requirement served an important safeguard for the program when first enacted, we have seen over time that the extra risk is not as great as anticipated. In the past 30 years, technological developments and time has shown that many of these properties can be successfully repurposed for alternative uses, increasing the market pool of potential buyers. Further, the charge-off rates for special purpose and standard loans are similar, demonstrating that these loans pose no greater risk than regular 504 loans. Because of its limited risk, the special use penalty is no longer necessary. H.R. 5763 reduces the minimum equity requirement for special purpose properties to at least 10%, in line with the requirement for standard 504 CDC loans. Most importantly, it maintains discretionary authority to require higher equity if deemed necessary. This bill is supported by the National Association of Development Companies. I applaud Chairman Williams and Representative Simon's bipartisan work on this issue, and I ask all my colleagues to support it. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserved. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
I yield to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Simon, for 3 minutes.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. It feels wonderful to say that. And I want to thank Representative Velasquez for your support, particularly for freshman members from the Democratic side on the Small Business Committee, and to Representative Chair Williams for your collaboration on this bill. I'm extremely proud to lead the Main Street Parity Act with Chair Williams. As members of the Small Business Committee, I would say one of the most bipartisan committees in the 119th Congress, we hear the same messages repeated every single day. Small businesses don't need special treatment. In fact, they're just asking for a fair shot in this economy. The SBA's 504 loan program is designed to provide that fair shot through basic good policy. Affordable, long-term financing. The financing helps small businesses buy buildings, buy property, expand operations, and employ Main Street neighbors throughout our community. But the current law, not all small businesses are treated the same. Owners of so-called small purpose properties are required to put up significantly more cash up front, often 5 to 10% more than standard property owners. And those include places like bowling alleys and wash houses and marinas and funeral homes and recreation centers. These are the kind of small businesses that serve local families and create jobs and keep our communities vibrant. For many entrepreneurs, the higher equity requirement is the difference between jumping in headfirst and creating new economic opportunities for their communities and families, or walking away entirely. The way of doing business just doesn't reflect our current economic technological realities. This bill offers a new opportunity for Americans across the country to step forward. The Main Street Parity Act is common sense. It's a clear fix that brings these loans in line with the 504 standardization programs by setting an equity requirement at 10%. I would encourage members from both sides of the aisle to put small business owners and their employees first by supporting this bill, and I will yield back.
Yields. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Madam Speaker, we have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
I have no further speaker. I'm prepared to close.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you. I again want to thank Chairman Williams and Representative Simon for their bipartisan work on this bill. I encourage all my colleagues to vote yes, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman yields. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And H.R. 5763 allows small businesses on Main Street to have equal access to SBA 504 loans. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill, H.R. 5763? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, two-thirds being in the affirmative, for what purpose does the gentleman
I ask for
seek
the
to be
yeas and nays.
recognized?
Ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 5764, the AI for Main Street Act, as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 351, H.R. 5764, a bill to amend the Small Business Act to require small businesses development centers to assist small business concerns with the use of artificial intelligence and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Velazquez, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may concern.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in strong support of H.R. 5764, the AI for Main Street Act introduced by Representatives Alford and Skolton. Artificial intelligence is increasingly being used to streamline operations, reduce costs, and boost productivity for small businesses. But for many small businesses across the country, adopting these tools remains out of reach because they lack the staff, the expertise, or the capital to do so. The AI for Main Street Act helps address this challenge by directing the SBA's Small Business Development Centers, or SBDCs, to assist small businesses in developing AI technologies into their operations. These centers operate in partnership with universities and community colleges across the country and are trusted advisors to local entrepreneurs. This approach builds on work already underway. In September 24, America's SBDCs, in partnership with Google, launched America SBDC AIU, which provides hands-on AI training, clinics, and technical assistance to small businesses. This bill builds on the effort by requiring the SBDC network to have a core duty to assist entrepreneurs nationwide in fighting AI in their businesses. As artificial intelligence becomes a core driver of productivity and competitiveness, Main Street cannot be left behind. I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 5764, the AI for Main Street Act. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume. I'm pleased to support the AI for Main Street Act, which would allow SBDCs to assist small business owners on how to evaluate artificial intelligence. I commend Mr. Alford and Ms. Colton for working together on this bipartisan legislation. AI has the potential to boost productivity, enhance customer service, and save costs. And while it is becoming increasingly common for small businesses to use AI to streamline their operations, many still do not have access to it responsibly. But if used incorrectly, AI could have disastrous consequences. That is why it is incredibly important for SBA and its entrepreneurial ecosystem to help small businesses understand the potential pitfalls and learn how to avoid them. I am pleased to support this bipartisan bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And at this time, I'd like to yield to the gentleman from the great state of Missouri, Mr. Alford, such time as he may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you so much. I rise today in strong support of our AI for Main Street Act, and I want to thank Chairman Williams for his leadership and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, foremost Ranking Member Velasquez for her leadership, and Congresswoman Hillary Scholten for working with me to bring this important bill forward. A lot of people are talking about AI these days. Will it overtake America? Will it put business owners and workers out of business? This bill is designed to get ahead of that, to make sure that that does not happen. In fact, to increase businesses in America. This committee, you know, exists for one simple reason, and that is to champion Main Street. The small businesses that line our town squares, that power our farms, support our hospitals, and employ nearly half of the American workforce. And right now, Main Street stands at the doorstep of a major transformation because the AI revolution is not just coming, it's already here. Whether it's managing inventory, scheduling workers, marketing products, improving cybersecurity, streamlining paperwork, artificial intelligence is rapidly becoming how business gets done in America. And if small businesses do not have the tools and guidance to adapt to that, if they're fearful of it, they risk getting left behind. Getting left behind by larger competitors with bigger budgets and in-house tech teams. And by the way, they're also using AI. Well, that's exactly what this bill addresses. The AI for Main Street Act directs small business development centers, SBDCs, to provide counseling, training, and outreach to help small businesses safely evaluate and adopt artificial intelligence tools. These centers already serve as trusted boots on the ground, advisors in communities across the country, like Columbia, the University of Missouri, like in Sedalia, and other places where these SBDCs are providing real help, real boots on the ground. Entrepreneurs rely on them for practical guidance and real-world help that works for their businesses. This bill builds on existing efforts like America's SBDC IAU program and ensures that AI support is consistent, accessible, and nationwide, not just in major metro areas, but in rural towns, manufacturing hubs, and agricultural communities like those I represent in Missouri's 4th Congressional District. And just as importantly, this bill emphasizes responsible adoption. We want small business owners to understand not only what AI can do, but how to use it securely and safely and ethically and effectively. This is not about replacing people. It is about empowering people. It's about giving a family-owned business the same opportunity to compete and grow and innovate as a Fortune 500 company. I am proud of this legislation and how it advanced out of committee with bipartisan support, strong bipartisan support. I appreciate the strong backing from our colleagues on both sides of the aisle who recognize that innovation and small business growth should never be partisan issues. At the end of the day, when Main Street succeeds, America succeeds. The AI for Main Street Act helps ensure that our entrepreneurs are not spectators in the next wave of innovation, but our small business owners are leaders in this revolution. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
Reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I have no further speaker. I'm prepared to close. I commend the sponsors for working together on this important legislation to provide small businesses with the training they need, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman Yields? The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Madam Speaker, H.R. 5764 will give small businesses the AI resources and tools directly for the SBDCs across this country. And I urge my colleagues to support this common sense legislation, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 5764 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, for what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
I ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 5788, the 504 Program Risk Oversight Act.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 352, H.R. 5788, a bill to amend Title V of the Small Business Investment Act of 1958 to require an annual portfolio risk analysis of loans guaranteed under such title and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Velazquez, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today in strong support of H.R. 5788, the 504 Program Risk Oversight Act, introduced by Representatives Tran and Petronas. This bipartisan piece of legislation would give Congress greater accountability and oversight of the SBA's 504 loan program by requiring the SBA to provide Congress and the public with annual, data-driven assessments of the 504 loan portfolio. The 504 program is an incredibly important tool that helps small businesses obtain long-term fixed-rate financing, like the acquisition of fixed assets such as land, buildings, and heavy machinery. In fiscal year 2025, the program supported $7.8 billion in loans to small businesses nationwide. Specifically, H.R. 5788 would require the SBA to provide Congress with annual reports on the health of the 504 loan portfolio. This would include an analysis of any risk to the program broken down by multiple data points, including industry concentration, loan age, and gross dollar amount. These reports would be made available to the public within 7 days of being provided to Congress. So the transparency measures in this bill are particularly important in light of the House passage of my bill, H.R. 3174, the Made in America Finance Act, which raised the loan limit for American manufacturers under the SBA's 7A and 504 loan programs to $10 million. I hope it will quickly move through the Senate and to President Trump's desk. H.R. 5788 marks a critical step toward identifying and mitigating risk early, strengthening the long-term viability and affordability of the 504 loan program, and ensuring continued support for the American entrepreneurs. With that, I urge my colleagues to vote yes on H.R. 5788, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of the bill before us today, H.R. 5788, the 504 Program Risk Oversight Act. Transparency is key to ensuring the proper operation and functioning of the SBA lending programs, including the 504 CDC program. And this bill will give our committee the information necessary to carry out our oversight authority. Federal law requires the SBA Office of Credit Risk Management to conduct an annual portfolio risk analysis of the SBA flagship 7A loan program and provide Congress with a detailed report of the results. This report has been crucial in Committee Democrats' investigation into the rising default levels in the 7A program and has helped us respond accordingly. Unfortunately, no statutory reporting requirement exists for the 504 CDC loan program. H.R. 5788 will fix that by adding a requirement that the SBA conduct an annual risk analysis of the 504 CDC program and provide Congress with the results. Tailored to the 504 CDC program's unique features, the report will provide Congress with many of the same data points it currently provides on the 7A program. But the bill also requires several new data points to improve our stewardship of the program. While loan defaults aren't currently a concern for the 504 program, this bill will provide Congress with valuable information needed to monitor the program's operation, guard against future risk, and ensure the program's zero subsidy requirement is maintained. I applaud Representatives Strand and Patronis for their work on this bill, which is supported by the National Association of Development Companies. I ask my colleagues to support it. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this time, I'd like to yield to the gentleman from the great state of Florida, Mr. Patronis, such time as he may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the lead of this bill, Mr. Tran of California. I appreciate the opportunity to serve as co-lead on this legislation. The SBA's 504 program helps small businesses grow, create jobs, invest in their communities. Because this program uses taxpayer-backed loans, it is important that we properly review and manage risk. H.R. 5788 makes a simple fix. It requires risk assessments for the 504 loan program. Just like we already do with other major SBA loan programs, this helps close the gap and improves oversight. Transparency matters. We are clearly understanding how our program is working. We can protect taxpayers' dollars, make sure the program stays strong. This bill helps us ensure that responsibility with the taxpayers' money while continuing to support small businesses. I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 5788. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields.
I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield to the gentleman from California and lead sponsor of the bill, Mr. Tran, for 3 minutes.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in strong support of H.R. 5788, the 504 Program Risk Oversight Act, bipartisan legislation that strengthens one of SBA's most successful financing programs. For decades, the SBA's 504 loan program has been a cornerstone of economic development in communities across America. Through public and private partnership with certified development companies, the 504 program helps small businesses grow, create jobs, and invest in their communities. Since its inception in 1986, the program has provided approximately $400 billion in total project financing and created over 3.3 million jobs. In California alone, that translates to $95 billion in total capital and the creation of over 715,000 good-paying jobs. For entrepreneurs in California 45th District and across the nation, the 504 loan program's unique model provides them with access to long-term, fixed-rate financing to help them expand operations, purchase property, and make lasting investments in their local economy. In Orange County and LA County alone, the 504 program has injected more than $27 billion into local businesses and helped create over 175,000 jobs over the last 25 years. My bipartisan bill, the 504 Program Risk Oversight Act, builds on that success by ensuring that all partners, the SBA, Congress, and industry, have access to clear, consistent, and transparent data about the health of the program. Currently, SBA is not required to conduct an annual risk analysis of the 504 loan program and provide Congress with any performance data. My bill addresses this problem and requires the SBA to conduct an annual risk assessment of the 504 program and provide Congress with detailed insights into overall health of the program and information needed to strengthen program performance. Transparent data is the cornerstone of a productive partnership between the SBA, Congress, and industry, and the work we do collectively to keep the 504 program healthy for future generations of entrepreneurs. Now more than ever, small businesses need what the 504 loan program provides, certainly, and affordable patient capital. I'm proud to lead this bill, and I want to thank my colleague, Representative Jimmy Patronis, for his partnership in co-leading this important piece of legislation with me. And of course, to Ranking Member Velasquez and Chair Williams, this would not be possible without your leadership. Madam Speaker, I urge my colleagues to support this bill. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from New York is recognized. Texas.
Texas. Madam Speaker, we have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I have no further speaker. I'm prepared to close.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
I again want to applaud Representatives Strand and Patronis for their bipartisan work on this bill, and I encourage all my colleagues to vote yes, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman yields. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And H.R. 5788 provides transparency to the SBA's 504 loan program, a key program that promotes job creation and small business growth. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and I yield back.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 5788? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 5784, the AI Wise Act.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 353, H.R. 5784, a bill to amend the Small Business Act to help small businesses' concerns critically evaluate artificial intelligence tools and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Velasquez, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 5784, the Artificial Intelligence Wisdom for Innovative Small Entrepreneurs Act, and the AI Wise Act. This bipartisan bill is led by Representatives Skolton and Downing. Artificial intelligence is changing how businesses operate in real time, and while large corporations can afford expensive consultants and trial and error experimentation, many small businesses do not have the luxury to do that, and for a small business owner like myself, every dollar matters. The AI Wise Act helps bridge that gap. This bill directs the SBA to provide a clear, accessible, and practical guidance that helps small businesses owners understand artificial intelligence in straightforward terms. It focuses on helping entrepreneurs evaluate whether an artificial intelligence tool is useful for their specific business, where it may fall short, and whether it is truly worth the cost they spend in their money to get that. Importantly, this bill does all of this without authorizing any new spending. It builds on existing programs, avoids picking winners and losers, and keeps the federal government focused on providing information, not mandates. And I urge my colleagues to support this common sense bipartisan legislation and vote yes on H.R. 5784. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
I am proud to support H.R. 5784, the AI Wise Act. 4 years ago, AI burst into mainstream focus with the launch of OpenAI's ChatGPT. When I first tried this tool, I was shocked. I knew then and there that AI had the potential to revolutionize the way American firms operate and do business. But AI, like all emerging technology, comes with risks. AI outputs are prone to bias, discrimination, misinformation, and omissions. Safety and cybersecurity vulnerabilities can render AI deployers open to adversarial attacks. And we don't even fully know this risk because we cannot predict AI's trajectory, so new risks could come up as it evolves and adds capabilities. We have all seen reports of Gen AI gone wrong, with episodes ranging from customer service chatbots at car dealerships offering to sell pickup trucks for $1 to general-purpose chatbots advising small businesses to break the law. In other words, a small business using a flawed AI model risks steep reputational and legal harm. Many of these incidents are attributable simply to AI's current technological immaturity and the growing pains that come with its ongoing revolution. This is why AI literacy is crucial for small businesses to keep up with the larger competitors considering and adopting AI. The AI WISE Act will direct SBA to create online AI literacy resources for entrepreneurs so they have the tools to make sound choices on AI adoption and use. It will also direct the SBA to keep the resources updated on innovations in AI technology through an expert working group. Finally, the bill will allow the SBA resource partners to develop specialized and localized assistance to best educate their communities. I thank my colleagues, Ms. Colton and Mr. Downing, for collaborating over the last 2 years to bring this bill to the floor. Furthermore, let me convey my gratitude to Chairman Williams, his staff director, Lauren Holmes, and all the floor staff for seeing this bill through today. It is greatly appreciated. With that, I urge members to support this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And at this time, I would like to introduce the gentleman from the great state of Montana, Mr. Downing, such time as he may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in strong support of H.R. 5784, the AI WISE Act. This legislation will provide essential resources for small businesses to support their efforts to adopt AI. Small businesses are optimistic about the potential of AI. Capabilities like machine learning and language processing are becoming critical tools for businesses seeking streamlined operations like workforce recruitment, marketing, and strategy development. However, businesses with substantial and stable access to capital tend to be better positioned for technology adoption and dealing with its ramifications. Small businesses, on the other hand, including businesses in rural communities like my home district in central and eastern Montana, often lack the resources and information needed to facilitate technology adoption. For example, according to a 2025 report from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, 59% of small businesses in Montana have adopted AI into their operations. While this figure may seem significant, it pales in comparison to the near universal adoption of AI that we see with Fortune 500 companies. That's why I'm proud to co-lead H.R. 5784, the AI WISE Act, with my colleague, Representative Skolton. The AI WISE Act directs the Small Business Administration, the SBA, to establish educational resources on AI for small businesses through its online learning platform. In doing so, this legislation seeks to provide small businesses with the technical and practical knowledge needed to best navigate AI adoption.
The scope of this educational material will include resources for small businesses on how AI models work, how businesses can identify tasks with AI and can effectively perform, the best practices for coordinating with third-party providers and protecting data privacy. I would like to thank my colleague, Representative Skolton, for co-leading this legislation with me. The AIWise Act will ensure small businesses have the information that they need to most effectively utilize AI to bolster their entrepreneurship. I urge my colleagues to vote in support of this legislation, and with that, I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from from New York is recognized.
I have no further speaker. I'm prepared to close.
A woman is recognized.
I commend Ms. Colton and Mr. Downing for their dedication to our nation's innovators, small enterprises, and I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 5784. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman yields. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and we cannot leave Main Street behind in the adoption of AI. I urge my colleagues vote yes on this legislation, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 5784? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Okay. For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek to be recognized?
Madam Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 659, Veterans Law Judge Experience Act of 2025.
The clerk will report the title of
Union Calendar Number 263, H.R. 659, a bill to amend Title 38 United States Code to direct the chairman of the Board of Veterans' Appeals to give priority to individuals with certain professional experience and recommending such individuals to serve as members of the Board of Veterans' Appeals and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Bost, and the gentleman from California, Mr. Takano, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks on H.R. 659.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 659. This bill would require the chairman of the Board of Veterans' Appeals to prioritize people with at least 3 years of relevant experience working in veterans law when recommending new veteran law judges to the VA Secretary for positions at the VA. This legislation does not alter the criteria the board currently uses to evaluate judges, and it does not restrict the board chairman from recommending other qualified candidates. Madam Speaker, this bill would ensure that the best judges with vitally important firsthand experience are serving our veterans at the VA. Veterans expect that those who are hearing their appeal are reviewing evidence in support of their appeal, have the skills, knowledge, and experience in veterans law to make sound decisions. I support this common sense legislation, and I urge all of my colleagues to support H.R. 659, and with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise to express my support for H.R. 659, the Veterans Law Judge Experience Act of 2025. Madam Speaker, contrary to what the American public often thinks, sometimes in this body, we actually do things that make sense. That is very much the case with H.R. 659, the Veterans Law Judge Experience Act, introduced by my friend and colleague, Representative Julia Brownlee. Now, this bill is simple and straightforward. It states that when recommending individuals to serve on the Board of Appeals, the Board of Veterans Appeals, priority should be given to those who have 3 or more years of experience in practicing veterans law. The Veterans Affairs Committee hears often about the complex nature of the disability compensation system at the Department of Veterans Affairs. That complexity, unfortunately, leads to mistakes and errors that cause our veterans' disability claims to be denied prematurely. And especially now at a time when we've seen that Secretary Collins has shifted the department's focus from getting claims right to simply getting them fast, we are seeing higher rates of processing errors, higher denial rates, and consequently higher rates of appeals to the Board of Veterans Appeals, the BVA. In that context, it is imperative that the BVA has the staffing levels and experience levels to get things right for our veterans. I, along with everyone else, support efforts to ensure that veterans and beneficiaries are being served at every point of contact in VA by the best talent we can muster. Now, one way we can do that is by ensuring we have the right folks in the right roles. This legislation seeks to help that at VVA by focusing on hiring those with sufficient experience to best serve our veterans. We can and should look to staff the Board of Veterans Appeals with attorneys that have demonstrated expertise in this area, attorneys who are experienced and who can see beyond quotas and metrics to apply the law to the maximum benefit of veterans at the heart of the process. So, Madam Speaker, I strongly support H.R. 659 and urge my colleagues to do the same. I also want to mention another bill that the House should take up, which would further improve the BVA. H.R. 2303, introduced by Representative Morgan McGarvey, increases the promotion potential for attorneys at the Board of Veterans Appeals. I know that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle balk at anything that might result in civil servants receiving more compensation. But if we agree that we need to hire board attorneys with greater experience, and we are asking them to do more work, and more complex work at that, we ought to see fit to pay them what they are worth. So I hope that my colleagues see fit to advance that bill very soon as well. Now, with that, Madam Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Madam Speaker, at this time I'd like to yield as much time as she may consume my good friend, the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Health and the author of this legislation, Ranking Member Julia Brownlee. Let me just say before I actually turn it over to her that I want to, in recognition of her announced retirement, she's going to be with us for the rest of the year, but I don't know if I'll ever have a chance to have this moment on the floor with her again. So I just want to point out that she was the leader of the very first Women Veterans Task Force that resulted in the Deborah Sampson Act, which unfortunately is really substantively the bill that she put forward and is really the real author of, but it carries somebody else's name. The same with the Elizabeth Dole Act. Amazing piece of legislation, amazingly substantive, and the Elizabeth Dole Act has laid the groundwork for our senior veterans who want to age in place at home. That and many other pieces of legislation as the chair and then ranking member of the Subcommittee on Health. It's with a heavy heart that I yield to my good friend and colleague from California, Julia Brownlee.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Ranking Member, for yielding, and thank you for the very kind words. I appreciate it very, very much. And I thank the Chairman and the Ranking Member for their support of this bill, the Veterans Law Judge Experience Act, and for their work to bring it to the floor today. Every day, far too many veterans across this country are waiting for a VA benefit decision, but not only for the benefits they are due, but for the stability, the security, and the relief that comes with these benefits. Too often, that wait stretches from months and sometimes into years. And during that time, veterans are left in limbo, unable to work, struggling to support their families, and forced to navigate a system that moves far too slowly for the urgency of their lives. Across our district offices, our caseworkers hear directly from veterans who are desperate for answers about their claims and appeals. In many cases, a timely VA decision could change a veteran's life. Yet even after waiting for an initial decision, they may need to appeal their case to the Board of Veterans' Appeals, where they face more months and often years of additional delay. Veterans deserve a system that works with the same urgency and seriousness with which they served our nation. But in recent years, despite hiring new veteran law judges, the board has often lacked the experienced personnel needed to move cases efficiently and accurately. This is in part due to the fact that in February 2020, the long-standing experience requirement for the veteran law judges was eliminated, opening the door to hiring judges without a background in veterans law. While we respect the commitment of those entering this workforce, the reality is that lengthy training periods slow decisions, increase errors, and leave veterans waiting even longer for answers. The Veterans Law Judge Experience Act takes a practical, common sense, and targeted step to address this challenge, to encourage the Board of Veteran Appeals to prioritize hiring judges with at least 3 years of veterans law experience. That means more cases decided, fewer delays, and stronger retention of professionals who already understand this complex and deeply consequential area of the law. Hiring experienced veteran law judges will help speed the appeals process, improve the accuracy of decisions, and reduce unnecessary appeals to the U.S. Court of Appeals for veteran claims. According to the Department of Veteran Affairs, there are approximately 200,000 pending appeals before the board today. 200,000 pending appeals before the board today. Further, a GAO audit spanning 2019 to 2022 showed that the U.S. Court of Appeals for veteran claims either partially or fully remanded more than 80% of veteran cases back to the board, resting the clock and compounding delays. Madam Speaker, our obligation to veterans does not end when they no longer serve in uniform. It continues in how we care for them, how we honor their service, and how seriously we take the responsibility to deliver the benefits they have earned. That is what guides my work on the House Veteran Affairs Committee, and why I am proud to see this bipartisan bill move forward. By strengthening the expertise of the Board of Veteran Appeals, we can reduce the backlog, restore trust in the system, and ensure that veterans receive the timely and fair decisions they deserve. I respectfully urge my colleagues to vote yes on this bill, which passed the House Veterans Affairs Committee with overwhelming bipartisan support. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield back.
The lady from California yields. The gentleman from California reserves. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois.
Mr. Speaker, we have no more speakers. I'm ready to close, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Illinois reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I have no more speakers, and I'm prepared to close.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on H.R. 659, the Veterans Law Judge Experience Act of 2025. It's clear to me from the words on the floor from the ranking member of the Health Subcommittee, Julia Brownlee, that this bill is wise, it is warranted, it is well thought out, and the arguments for it are about helping our veterans receive their claims, get their claims approved in a timely manner. And again, I would like to repeat my sentiment that we appreciate her service to this body, and she has left an indelible mark on veterans policy, on veterans affairs, and I look forward to serving the balance of this year with my colleague and congratulate her on a brilliant career in the House of Representatives. And I yield back.
Gentleman from California yields. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd also like to say congratulations to the gentlewoman from California for her time and service here, and wish her the best. Hopefully we still have a lot of things to get done, to working together. And this bill is a very good bill. And with that, Speaker, I once again encourage all members to support this legislation, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Illinois yields the balance of his time. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 659? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1663, the Veterans Scam and Fraud Evasion Act of 2025, or the V-Safe Act of 2025, as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1663, a bill to amend Title 38 United States Code to establish in the Department of Veterans Affairs a Veterans Scam and Fraud Evasion Officer and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Bost, and the gentleman from California, Mr. Takano, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois.
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks on H.R. 1663 as amended.
Without objection.
Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 1663 as amended, offered by Representative Calvert from California. This bill would protect veterans from scams and fraud that may target the benefits they earned through service. Too many veterans, along with their families, caregivers, and survivors, are being hit with savvy fraud schemes designed to steal personal information, drain bank accounts, and even redirect VA benefits to bad actors. And when these scams happen, veterans often don't know where to turn inside the federal system. And the V-Safe Act would take direct action to fix this issue. This bill would add dedicated veteran scam and fraud evasion officers positions to the Department of Veterans Affairs. This would rightfully build up VA's fraud prevention and response efforts across VA. So this problem is treated like a real threat, not just an afterthought. Representative Calvert's bill would also require VA to improve communications during urgent fraud instances. So veterans and their families are not left in the dark while scammers continue to strike. By building up the VA's existing anti-fraud tools and adding new ones where necessary, we can combat fraud head on. Speaker, at the end of the day, veterans should never lose their hard-earned benefits because the system failed to protect them from criminals. The V-Safe Act should strengthen the accountability, improve prevention, and give veterans the support and protection they deserve. This bill takes an important step towards safeguarding veterans, strengthening trust in the VA system, and I'm proud to support it. I urge all of my colleagues to support H.R. 1663 as amended. And with that, Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Illinois reserves. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak in hesitant support of H.R. 1663, the Veteran Scam and Fraud Evasion, or V-Safe Act as amended. Now, I fully support the intention of this bill and strongly encourage the department to fully resource the VSafe program established under President Biden. However, the actions taken by the Trump administration over the last year will significantly hinder the great work that has been accomplished by the VSafe Task Force, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is unfortunately more pressing than ever. According to the Federal Trade Commission, veterans reported some of the highest numbers of fraud complaints and greatest total losses in 2024, amounting to nearly $600 million. Veterans also continually face higher losses than their civilian counterparts, with median losses reported around $700, which is over $200 higher than the general population. Now, both the FTC and the CFPB have done important work in identifying the most pressing scams and fraudulent activities that target veterans and their families. These include scams like credit card fraud, investment schemes, and imposter scams which seek to impersonate government officials, technology support, or even love interests to collect money or gain access to veterans' personal systems. They have also identified the threat of multi-level marketing schemes and other quote-unquote business opportunities like Amway, Mary Kay, and Herbalife, who regularly target veterans, service members, and their families under the guise of patriotism, flexible hours, and financial independence. Now, I applaud my colleague, Representative Delio Ramirez, for offering an amendment to require specific trainings on these tactics to provide veterans and their families with clear, actionable guidance to protect their hard-earned benefits. It is unfortunate that this common sense amendment was voted down by the Republican members of our committee. Lastly, I find it ironic that these same Republican colleagues want to advance this legislation while our president actively dismantles the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, one of the only agencies set up to protect military and veteran consumers. Irony. Since its inception in 2008, the CFPB has returned more than $21 billion, that's billion with a B, back to consumers, which includes hundreds of millions of dollars to service members and veterans impacted by violations of the Military Lending Act. Unfortunately, President Trump has determined that those who served our nation no longer deserve protections against bad actors who seek to profit off their benefits. As fraudsters' ability to create more complex scams and more convincing in their deceit thanks to emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, the time to create informed and resource tools is now. H.R. 1663 marks a step in the right direction, but I urge my congressional colleagues to do more to help protect our nation's veterans against these scams. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield, and I'd like to yield here in just a minute if I can, but someday I would like to carry on this floor from our committee a bill that is actually sponsored by a Republican that my colleague could actually find totally good. We come out here every time and he finds all the excuses of why this is bad, this is bad, and this is bad. This is a really good bill. And so just so we know, the person that worked on this has worked very hard on this bill to make sure it deals with the fraud that is out there. And with that, I want to recognize him for as much time as he may consume, the gentleman from California, Mr. Ken Calvert.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through their service and sacrifice, our veterans willingly put themselves in harm's way to ensure the security of our country. It's our turn to ensure that they're protected from scams and fraud. That's why I introduced H.R. 1663, the Veteran Scam and Fraud Evasion Act, or VSafe Act. The sophistication and frequency of scams and fraud targeting our veterans is constantly increasing. According to a report from the Federal Trade Commission, U.S. veterans and military retirees reported $350 million in total fraud losses in 2023. While a number of departments and staff work in an uncoordinated manner to combat fraud within the VA and other agencies, the VSafe Act will establish a comprehensive effort that will assist our veterans by establishing a Veterans Scam and Fraud Evasion Officer in the Department of Veterans Affairs who is responsible for all fraud prevention efforts. By providing veterans with more consistent guidance on how to identify, report, and avoid fraud and scam attempts, we can reduce the occurrences that are occurring. I want to thank Chairman Mike Boss and all the co-sponsors of this bill for their support. I encourage all my colleagues to protect our veterans by supporting the V-Safe Act. With that, I'll yield back to the gentleman.
Gentleman from California yields back.
We have no more speakers. We're ready to close, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Illinois is ready to close and yields, or reserves. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further speakers. I'm prepared to close.
Gentleman is recognized.
Let me just, in response to the chairman, just say that I did say that this bill was a step in the right direction, a step that could be a big leap if we all got behind bigger initiatives and called upon this administration to stop diminishing and diluting the power of the Financial Consumer Protection Bureau. The results of protecting military service members and veterans by that particular agency are undisputed, and it became particularly impactful when it was in full force. But the philosophy of this administration has been to diminish the authority and reach of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, as well as the Federal Trade Commission, and our veterans are suffering, and in spite of this very small step we're taking with this bill, it is insufficient to take on the enormous challenge of fighting fraudsters in this country who will take advantage of those who've laid their lives on the line for all of us. But with that, I do urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and I'll intend to vote yes, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from California yields. Gentleman from Illinois is recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to encourage all of my members to support this piece of legislation. I think it's a wonderful piece of legislation. It's way overdue. And with that, I will yield back the balance of my time.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1663 as amended? Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess until approximately 6:30 p.m. today.
The House will be in order. Proceedings will resume on motions to suspend the rules previously postponed. Votes will be taken in the following order: H.R. 5763 and H.R. 5764. The first electronic vote will be conducted as a 15-minute vote. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, remaining electronic votes will be conducted as 5-minute votes. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 5763. on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title.
Union Calendar Number 354, H.R. 5763, a bill to amend the Small Business Investment Act of 1958 to modify the criteria for loans for plant acquisition, construction, conversion, or expansion, and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 383, the nays are 8. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended and the bill is passed. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Next one to Clause 8 of Rule 20. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 5764. As amended, on which the yeas and nays are ordered, the clerk will report the title.
Union Calendar number 351, H.R. 5764, a bill to amend the Small Business Act to require small businesses development centers to assist small business concerns with the use of artificial intelligence and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote. On this vote, the ye- Right. On this vote, the yeas are 395, the nays are 14. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended and the bill is passed. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
If we could take conversations to the hallway, please. For what reason does the gentlelady from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to remove the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Evans, as co-sponsor of H.R. 5116.
Without objection? The chair lays before the House the following enrolled bill.
H.R. 6938, an act making consolidated appropriations for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2026, and for other purposes.
Chair will now entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the good gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize and honor Mr. Glenn Ritchie, a distinguished Floridian whose lifelong dedication to civic leadership, business excellence, and community service has left an indelible mark on Daytona Beach, the state of Florida, and the nation. Mr. Ritchie is the former mayor of Daytona Beach, serving from 2006 to 2012. He contributed his time to a wide range of civic, educational, and charitable organizations. His service demonstrates a steadfast commitment to progress and public good. His accomplishments have been recognized with dozens of prestigious awards, including the United Way Herbert M. Davidson Award for Outstanding Community Service and NAACP Humanitarian of the Year Award. In 2019, he was honored for the 18th consecutive year as a GM Dealer of the Year, one of only 3 dealers in the nation to hold that distinction. Glenn Ritchie is also a proud family man with 4 children, 9 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. Mr. Speaker, it's a privilege to honor Glenn Ritchie for a life dedicated to service, leadership, and community. He embodies the very best of American leadership, and I ask my colleagues to join me in recognizing his remarkable contributions. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise, a proud South Carolina State University alumnus, to congratulate its football team on their new title, the 2025 HBCU National Champions. The Bulldogs erased a 21-point halftime deficit, scoring 3 touchdowns in the third quarter to win the Cricket Celebration Bowl in a 4-overtime thriller over Prairie View A&M University. So my not-so-sincere apologies to my good friend and our colleague, Emmanuel Cleaver. The Bulldogs finished the season 10-3 and claimed their second Celebration Bowl title and third appearance in the Classic over the past 5 years. It was also a great honor for the city and county of Orangeburg and the state of South Carolina showed its appreciation by flying the school's flag over the Capitol Dome yesterday as the nation honored HBCU graduate Martin Luther King Jr. Mr. Speaker, I ask that you and our colleagues join me in congratulating the South Carolina State University Bulldogs for their exceptional season. This championship will be remembered not only for the trophies earned and individual achievements and the sportsmanship for the Prairie View A&M Panthers. Are you back?
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to urge the House to immediately consider and pass the FDA Modernization Act 3.0, which reduces unnecessary animal testing. Many of our families would feel incomplete without the pets and animals that bring unconditional love to our lives. However, there are millions of animals in our country that are forced into inhumane testing for pharmaceutical development. When I think about health care policy in Congress, I recognize the need to protect the lives of those who cannot defend themselves. In 2022, I helped pass the FDA Modernization Act 2.0, allowing drug developers to use modern animal-free testing methods for the first time. This act was intended to cut the requirements from the FDA that put so many animals in harm's way. Unfortunately, under the Biden administration, the FDA did not fully implement this law, limiting its effectiveness and leaving animals at risk. That's why I introduced a bill called the FDA Modernization Act 3.0 to compel the FDA's career bureaucrats to finally implement the will of the Congress and the American people. This bill not only helps to reduce and replace the use of animals in non-clinical research, but it works to improve these methods and reduce the time of drug development. Mr. Speaker, by passing this bill, Congress can save animal lives and accelerate the delivery of safer, more affordable, and effective medications. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize and salute the exceptional life of M. Christina Sellen, known as Chris to all of her friends, a resident of New Rochelle and a tremendous community leader. Chris is, by profession, a lawyer with a practice in business and commercial law. She's an active member of the New Rochelle Bar Association as part of that commitment to the law. But Chris's work goes well beyond that. She served for over a decade as a councilwoman on the New Rochelle City Council, representing the city's South End, service as president of the New Rochelle Public Library Foundation, active in her neighborhood Sutton Manor Residents Association, and an ever-present participant at major community events. The summer concerts and all of the other programs always happen with Chris present and participating. In testimony to her community impact, she was named Grand Marshal for the 2025 New Rochelle Thanksgiving Day Parade, the largest such parade in the county, and she's received numerous awards and recognitions. This week, Chris celebrates her 80th birthday at a soiree at Alvin and Friends, the popular downtown New Rochelle establishment, where she will be surrounded by friends and well-wishers. From the floor of the House of Representatives, we salute this neighbor and friend who is making a tremendous contribution every day to her profession and to her home community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize an extraordinary milestone for one of our community's most cherished institutions, Helen Hayes Hospital, celebrating over 125 years of service as of last year. Founded in 1900 as one of our nation's earliest hospitals dedicated to caring for children with physical disabilities, Helen Hayes Hospital has grown from a small cottage in Tarrytown to a nationally recognized leader in rehabilitation right in the heart of West Havistraw. For generations, families across the Hudson Valley and far beyond have turned to Helen Hayes during some of their most challenging moments, including my grandmother, who was recovering from a heart attack. And time after time, the doctors, nurses, therapists, and staff have delivered world-class care rooted in compassion, expertise, and a deep commitment to every patient's recovery. From treating children affected by tuberculosis and polio to helping today's patients rebuild their lives after strokes, spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, and complex surgeries, Helen Hayes Hospital has never wavered in its mission. Thank you to every member of their team, past and present, for the life-changing work they have done for our community for the last 125 years.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Oregon seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I would like to offer my impression of a congressional member owl who will not stand up to the unconstitutional acts of this administration. Who? Who, me? Everything's okay. I see the beatings on TV. I see ICE showing up at people's doors. I see what's happening, but I'm not getting in the way. I'm going to keep my head down. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, last night the country watched something nobody predicted. Indiana national football champions. Our Hoosiers beat Miami 27-21 and finished a perfect season and brought the title home to Indiana. I say that as a proud IU alum, former chairman of our IU Alumni Association, 800,000 living alumni strong. My wife Mary and I have been cheering on our Hoosiers since college days, and we'll be talking about this play for a long time. 4th and 5, Fernando Mendoza puts his head down, bounces off defender, spin stretches, and powers in for the touchdown. Coach Curt Cignetti took over just 2 seasons ago. No shortcuts, no gimmicks, just work and belief. Congratulations to IU's President Pam Whitten, our AD Scott Dolson, every player and coach, and our Hoosier fans who never gave up. Coach Cignetti said of this season, it'd make a hell of a movie. And he's right. I yield back.
Congratulations indeed. For what purpose does the gentlelady from New Mexico seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask for 1 minute to address the House and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, it is beyond time to defund ICE. Beyond time to stop the violence, beyond time to stop the unfettered use of force against our communities, to stop the lawless violation of human and civil rights, and beyond time, Mr. Speaker, to stop the rot from the top, which has turned this agency into a rogue and lawless force that is terrorizing our communities. This week, this House will consider funding for DHS and giving more funding to ICE. So let me be clear, Mr. Speaker, I am not only a no, I am a hell no. From unleashing violence in Minneapolis to dog whistles from the White House, I have received countless calls from New Mexicans calling for an end to this violence because we cannot and we will not allow ICE to tear our country apart. We refuse to allow this administration to terrorize this country, and that is why I will be damned if we give one more dollar to that rogue organization, Mr. Speaker, and that is why I will vote
gentlelady's time has
no,
expired.
and that is why we must defund ICE.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlelady from New Jersey seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to congratulate the winners of the 2025 New Jersey Temps Black History Month Congressional Essay Contest. I love this contest because it showcases the amazing talent found in the halls of our New Jersey 10 schools. Uplifting our prolific young writers is vital to empowering the next generation of New Jersey leaders. Last year, Emma Andre from Cranford High School, Mia Jones from University High School, Bruno Mendez from Science Park High School, and Chris Takuri from Science Park High School, and Demetrius Williams from East Orange STEM High School were each recognized for their tributes to Black history trailblazers. And this year, the contest continues in celebration of the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. So 100 years later, where do we go from here? I'm challenging New Jersey 10 students to ponder this question and examine the current state of Black history, envisioning its future for generations to come. Submissions are due by February 23rd. With that, I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Ohio seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, alongside hundreds of Ohioans, our community of Toledo celebrated the sacrificial life and works of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Macedonia Baptist Church in Toledo and its rousing choir welcomed guest speaker, NAACP's National Executive Board member, Reverend Dr. Wendell Anthony, who spoke eloquently of the living legacy of Reverend Dr. King. One quote of Dr. King remains alive, and there are so many that do, but is particularly poignant and courageous. He said, "I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future, but I've had to analyze many things over the last few years. And I would say over the last few months, I've gone through a lot of soul searching, frankly, agonizing moments, and I've come to see that we have many more difficulties ahead. Some of the old optimism was a little superficial. Now it must be tempered with solid realism, and I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go." Mr. Speaker, he worked until his life was taken from him for hope, optimism, and to build a better world every day. I share that with every citizen of our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. I rise to recognize and congratulate Abigail Ross Hopper, who is retiring from her role as President and CEO of the Solar Energy Industries Association. For nearly a decade, Abby has led efforts to develop, to enact, and defend policies to support solar energy and energy storage. During this time, the solar industry has been massively successful. Costs have come down dramatically. Some 250 gigawatts of installed solar capacity nationwide now exist. That's enough to power 45 million homes, making solar an important and rapidly growing part of our electricity mix. And as of 2024, the industry employed 280,000 Americans across thousands of companies, including a recent boom in domestic manufacturing jobs. One of the greatest developments over the past few years has been the huge growth in American-made solar panels and components. Thanks to policies championed by Abby and SEIA, the United States has become the third largest solar module manufacturer in the world. While I'm saddened by Abby's departure, I am confident that because of her leadership, the solar industry is well positioned to continue playing a leading role in delivering the affordable, reliable, and pollution-free electricity that Americans are indeed counting on. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2025, the gentlewoman from Virginia, Ms. McClellan, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include any extraneous material on the subject of this special order.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with great honor that I rise today to chair or to anchor this Congressional Black Caucus Special Order Hour. As we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., whose national holiday was yesterday, who would have been 97 years old on January 15th. Mr. Speaker, 1 year ago today was Dr. King Day. It was also Inauguration Day. And as I sat in the rotunda watching the president take the oath of office, I couldn't help but ponder the final question that Dr. King pondered in the last year of his life. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? Dr. King asked this question after the victory of the Civil Rights Act, after the victory of the Voting Rights Act. And he pondered, what should the Black community do with this extraordinary power, the power of the vote, when for the first time in American history, a government by, of, and for the people finally included Black Americans. He focused on addressing poverty. He focused on addressing discrimination. He focused on addressing war. I thought about another speech that he gave shortly before he died, called Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. Because before Inauguration Day, one of the architects of Project 2025, which has become the blueprint for the second Trump administration, said, this is the second American Revolution, which will be peaceful if the left allows it. And I thought about, what would Dr. King say today? His words remain relevant. Within hours of the president taking his oath of office, chaos was unleashed. We saw through an attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion over the past year, efforts to roll back the hard-won victories of the civil rights movement. We see at the Supreme Court right now a case that could gut what remains of the Voting Rights Act after the court gutted Section 5 and Section 4 effectively in the Shelby versus Holder case. We've seen Black and brown communities, including American citizens, living in terror as ICE agents show up on streets, door to door, in our courthouses, on the way to school, grabbing people and violating their due process rights. We've seen trade wars that make the cost of everything go up. We have seen a federal workforce, which was the doorway to the middle class for many Black Americans. We've seen a federal workforce, in the words of Russell Vogt, traumatized. We have seen the largest cuts to food assistance and health care coverage in American history. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Chaos has been unleashed. But Dr. King, in his time, while he fought chaos, he stayed focused on community. He stayed focused on building what he called the beloved community. I think the beloved community is best described as a community in which we care for one another, where we feed the hungry, where we care for the sick, where we house the homeless. And he focused on making sure that the promises upon which this country was founded ring true for every American. Before he died, he wondered if the dream that he talked about on the March on Washington had become a nightmare and was too far out of reach. But on the night before he died, he told us that he'd seen the promised land, that he wouldn't get there with us, but he still believed in the power of community and the power of the beloved community. And the Congressional Black Caucus today is carrying forward his work. We are his legacy. We are his legacy as we ensure that what he fought for, what John Lewis fought for, what millions of Americans fought for from the first day in 1619 when Africans were brought on this shore involuntarily. And from day one, through acts of rebellion, resistance, and self-liberation, fought for an America that included them in we the people. We carry out that legacy. And we will fight the chaos every single day to ensure that his work continues. Whether it's expanding the right to vote, whether it's fighting unjust wars, whether it is working to eradicate poverty, whether it's standing up for the constitutional rights of every American. As the conscience of the Congress, we will continue that legacy. Mr. Speaker, it is now my pleasure to yield to our chairwoman, the Congresswoman from New York, Yvette Clarke.
Good evening. I'm Representative Yvette D. Clarke, Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, proudly representing New York's 9th Congressional District in Central and South Brooklyn. I want to thank Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan for anchoring this Congressional Black Caucus Special Order Hour. I rise tonight, Mr. Speaker, with my colleagues of the Congressional Black Caucus to commemorate the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Dr. King held an unyielding belief that women and men everywhere, regardless of color or creed, are equal. He used the power of words and the example of nonviolent resistance to bring us closer to racial and economic justice. Dr. King was a man of courage, principles, and faith, and we are forever in his debt. Today, his example inspires us all toward our highest ideals as Americans. As we gather to honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., an American hero and patriot, we are keenly aware of the pivotal moment in history in which we stand, and of the forces actively working to undermine his life's work. At a time when the most vulnerable communities in our nation are under relentless attack, the Congressional Black Caucus continues to uphold Dr. King's legacy, rooted in justice, fairness, and equity for all. Today, ironically, also marks the one-year anniversary of the Trump administration. And as we reflect on the damage this administration has inflicted on communities across this nation, we call on our colleagues across the aisle to honor the teachings and philosophy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., and to hold and to work with us to reject the hateful agenda that has taken hold. Dr. King devoted his life to reminding us that silence in the face of injustice is not an option. As he so powerfully said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. The Congressional Black Caucus refuses to remain silent in the face of the pain this administration inflicts on the American people. From the assaults on voting rights with the looming Louisiana v. Calais decision before the Supreme Court, to deepening economic inequality, to the threats against our nation's health care. Today, We are recommitting ourselves to the fight of keeping Dr. King's dream and his mission alive. And with that, I yield back to the gentlelady from Virginia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Speaker, I now yield to our immediate past chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, the Congressman from Nevada's 4th, Stephen Horsford.
I thank my colleague from the Commonwealth of Virginia for yielding, and to the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Clark, and all of our colleagues for the work that we do every single day to live out the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the legacy of my dear fraternity brother and trailblazing leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Today I speak with urgency about the American dream, specifically that dream being under attack. More than 60 years ago, Dr. King warned this nation that America had given Black Americans a bad check, a check marked insufficient funds, a promise made but not kept, opportunity delayed, and justice deferred. Mr. Speaker, that warning still rings true today. Dr. King reminded us that public policy is a moral act. What we choose to fund and what we choose to cut reveals who we value and who we leave behind. Right now, working families in my home state of Nevada and all across this country are feeling the consequences of those choices. Prices are rising, wages are stretched thin, and too many people are working full-time but still falling behind. And while families are struggling to make ends meet, this administration is attempting to rewrite history. Just recently, the current occupant of the White House claimed that civil rights era protections left white Americans, quote, very badly treated, unquote. These false and dangerous claims tarnish Dr. King's legacy and the history in which he lived, which is at risk of repeating itself today. Dr. King called for a revolution of values, and I rise today with my colleagues to reinforce that cause. Today, that revolution means choosing people over profits, workers over Wall Street, and families over special interest. The American dream is not dead, but it is under attack. If we lead with courage, invest with purpose, and govern with our values, we can revive it for Nevada and for our entire nation. That is how we honor Dr. King's legacy, by building an America of equal opportunity, of shared prosperity and dignity for all. So I encourage all of my colleagues, regardless of party lines, to do their part in honoring Dr. King through their actions. That is how we carry on his legacy, and that is how we revive the dream. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Congressman Horsford. I now yield to the Congresswoman from North Carolina's 4th District, Congresswoman Valerie Fouché.
Thank you to the gentlelady for organizing this special order hour and for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to join my colleagues in reflecting on the life, legacy, and enduring moral leadership of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose vision of justice and equality continues to shape our nation's conscience. Dr. King's work reminds us that progress in this country has never been inevitable, and that the rights and freedoms we cherish have always required vigilance, courage, and sustained commitment. Today, that lesson is as urgent as ever. Across our country, communities are feeling the weight of an administration that governs through extremism, division, punishment, and exclusion. We see it in attacks on our voting rights, in efforts to criminalize protests, in targeting immigrants and asylum seekers,
in the rollback of civil rights protections, and in policies that deepen economic inequality while shielding the powerful from accountability. Dr. King did not believe justice was self-executing. He understood that progress is never handed down, it is demanded. And he warned us, as you heard from our chairwoman, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And silence, Mr. Speaker, is exactly what this moment does not allow. Progress is never achieved without persistence, and justice is never advanced without those willing to confront complacency and demand accountability. The Congressional Black Caucus will not be silent while families are pushed deeper into poverty, while communities of color are targeted by discriminatory policies, and while the promise of our democracy is narrowed to serve the few instead of the many. We refuse to accept the vision of America where cruelty is policy and inequality is the goal. Instead, we stand in the tradition of Dr. King, committed to dignity, equity, and justice for all. And we will continue to speak out, to act, and to fight until the promise of this nation is fully realized. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman Fouché. And now I yield to the Congressman from Maryland's 4th District, Glenn Ivey.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Virginia for hosting this event, and also the Congressional Black Caucus for the focus on this issue tonight. I was a child in Rocky Mount, North Carolina in the late 1960s. I lived across the street from the Booker T. Washington High School, so you know what side of town I lived on. And Rocky Mount was a city that was still segregated. In fact, it was literally divided by the tracks, the railroad tracks that ran through the middle of the town. The whites lived on one side, the blacks lived on the other. My parents were both graduates of that high school and had gone to work at that point. My mother worked in the school system. And so in the late 1960s, the schools were still segregated. But I was able to see how that changed as my mother was working and then had the chance to go work at other schools as the schools integrated. And I knew that the connection was the civil rights movement as led by Dr. Martin Luther King. And Dr. Martin Luther King had preached at that gymnasium at Booker T. Washington High School a few years earlier. I was probably too young to remember him even showing up, but we recognized the power of that movement and his leadership. His leadership was a courage rooted in faith, total commitment to public service. He knew he was going to be killed. As you know from I've been to the mountaintop speech he delivered the night before he was assassinated, but he still went on. In 1956, after he had just graduated, or he was still working on his dissertation, actually working on graduating with his PhD, he was called to Montgomery to preach at a church there and lead the church. And when he got there, he was drafted in becoming leader of the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Council. And he was put in that position because they had conflicting groups. They couldn't decide who the leader should be, but they knew it was a critical time. And they knew that this young man, whose father had been a preacher, had talent, and they put him in the middle of that position. So this is a young man, I think he's around 26, moves to a new town, doesn't know anybody there, with his wife and child. He becomes the pastor of a church. He's still writing his dissertation at night, and then he becomes the leader of the Montgomery bus boycott. Talk about gifted leadership. And not too far into that, they're a few days in actually, the white segregationists realized that this bus boycott was serious. They knew that it was real. And so they started with the threats. They tried to threaten people and threaten to take their jobs away, but they weren't able to get away with that. They weren't able to undermine the bus boycott with the threats. So they actually started calling Dr. King's house. And they threatened his wife, and they threatened him. And eventually, the threats became real. In 1956, somebody put a bomb in his house and blew up the front part of it. His wife was there, his young baby was there. Thank God neither of them was hurt. And when Dr. King heard about it, he prayed and then ran to his house as quickly as he could. And when he got there were a crowd had gathered, hundreds of people, African Americans who lived in that community and knew about Dr. King and attended his church, and they were angry. If they had guns, they brought those. If they had weapons, they brought those. If they didn't have that, they grabbed a shovel or whatever they can get their hands on and went to the house because they were ready to seek revenge. But Dr. King said, that's not our way. The Christian leadership that he provided that was deeply rooted in faith, deeply rooted in nonviolence, and it was ultimately tested that night. But he met the test that night and continued forward. Part of that movement ended up resulting in the civil rights legislation that became the crown jewel of the American democracy. Because American wasn't really a democracy in 1776 or, when the Constitution was written in the 1789-87 era. And it certainly wasn't a democracy after the Civil War, because right after that, when Reconstruction ended, the Ku Klux Klan rose up. They reasserted their right to white supremacy. African Americans who'd been freed from slavery were pushed back into an ugly version, an ugly violent version that we called segregation. The Jim Crow laws were put in place. Many of them had achieved positions, including being elected to this body, and all of that was stripped away. And for the next 100 years or so, African Americans lived under threat of violence. If you looked at a white woman the wrong way, you could end up dead. If she just thought you looked at her the wrong way, you could end up dead. That's what happened to Emmett Till. And not only that, you had African Americans who came back from service after World War II, including my father-in-law. And what they found was an America that was still deeply violent, deeply racial. In fact, one of the veterans that came back who'd served on the military and fought in World War II had his eyes gouged out when he came back. An act of violence that shocked the country, but didn't shock it enough. And we had other lynchings and the like that went through that era and continued into the 1960s. And that's when Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement had their rendezvous with destiny. So I'm here tonight to thank him for the work that he did. The Voting Rights Act, which is one of the key pieces of legislation that came out of that era, is now under attack. It's under threat. It's pending in front of the Supreme Court across the street. We won't know how it's going to turn out until the opinion is released. But I tell you what, we're not in the same place we were even then, because when the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965, yeah, there was division. There were people who opposed it. There were segregationists who, they called themselves Dixiecrats then, who opposed it as well. But when it was reauthorized in 2006, the vote in the House was 390 to 33, and it passed the Senate unanimously. President Reagan had signed a previous reauthorization. President Bush signed this one, and that was just 20 years ago. What's happened to the country since then? I'll say this. We all know that the vote is the most powerful tool in a democracy. We all know that there are challenges to votes and voting ability and voting rights across the country. We have disagreements, I suppose, with our Republican colleagues about some of that, but we need to make sure we remain vigilant and keep working hard to protect those rights. I had a chance over the weekend to do a couple of things. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and Monday, I had a chance to go visit churches and groups that were celebrating Dr. King, remembering Dr. King. Went to First Baptist Church of Highland Park, Faith Temple No. 2, and the AKAs had a day of service that I was happy to go attend and have a chance to speak to them and worship with them and work with them. And they're all concerned about where the country's going and the challenges to the American democracy and the civil rights movement that gave us the rights that we have today. I think it's critical for us to remember a couple of things. One is the work continues, no doubt. I have strong disagreements, to say the least, with the current administration, and I commit myself to fighting against the excesses and the wrongs that are going on there. On Friday, I went with a group of Democrats to Minnesota to deal with the protests there, to see them firsthand. And they reminded me in some ways of the civil rights protests from back in that era. The protests in Selma that led to the Voting Rights Act passage, the protests in Birmingham. The violence is shocking. People are dying. The shooting of Renee Good is just one of those that's reached the media attention. But there are more of these going on all across the country. And I saw clips of people and heard their testimony, people who were dragged out of cars, people who were citizens but still arrested anyway and taken to the ICE detention center and not released for hours, people who were denied the right to call for an attorney, people who were denied the basic constitutional rights that my colleague from Virginia was talking about. We've got to make sure we turn that around. We've got to make sure that we protect the rights that the civil rights movement was about defending, and even beyond that, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, all of those things that were put in place 250 years ago, which is the anniversary we're about to celebrate later this year. And rightly so. We're not a perfect country, we're not a perfect nation, but we've been called to a perfect mission, and we need to fulfill that mission. I think it's important to wrap up with this. Dr. King's dream, kids learn about it in school now, and they see the replays, but in some ways the dream has become a memory for many. I think it's important for us to recall that the dream is not a memory, it's a mandate, it's a mission. It's a movement that we need to continue to make sure we get that work done that Dr. King died for, and so many others died as well. So I want to thank my colleague again for putting on this event tonight, giving us a chance to remember Dr. King and think about the civil rights movement and where we're going as a nation. And I want to continue to fight alongside her and all my colleagues with the Congressional Black Caucus and my colleagues here in the House of Representatives on both sides of the aisle as we work to get this done. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Ivey. Mr. Speaker, you see behind me a quote from Dr. King that he gave in an interview in 1967, where he talks about how, in many ways, the dream that he articulated in the March on Washington had become a nightmare. Most people are surprised by that. But why did it become a nightmare? Because after the victories of the Civil Rights Act, after the victory of the Voting Rights Act, when he really began to address the systemic issues facing this country of poverty, of hatred, of war, he began to see how deeply ingrained in American culture racism really was. He began to see that the systemic racism couldn't just be overcome with laws. And I think for many African Americans today, that is the heartbreak that we face. When Dr. King spoke at the March on Washington, he said that in many ways, the marchers had come to collect on a promissory note in our Declaration of Independence, written 250 years ago, which promised that all men were endowed by their Creator with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But Thomas Jefferson didn't mean all men. He didn't include the men, women, and children that he owned, including his children and the mother of those children. When James Madison, the architect of the Constitution, wrote the Virginia plan that led to the Constitution. In the beginning, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, and laid out a vision of government by, of, and for the people. It didn't include all the people. My ancestors, our ancestors here in the Congressional Black Caucus, weren't even deemed people. They were deemed 3/5 of a person for purpose of apportionment, but they were treated as property, and in some cases, animals. We have a country that was literally built on the backs of a whole race of people with an ideal that was revolutionary, that said the power of government derives from the people. And my ancestors believed in that ideal just as much as yours, Mr. Speaker, but it took us a long time to participate in that government, in that promise. That's what the civil rights movement was about. But it was also about recognizing the basic decency and dignity of every human being, regardless of where they're born, regardless of how they worship, regardless of the color of their skin. But we still have a long way to go, because what diversity, equity, and inclusion recognizes is that when the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and all of the laws that were passed because of the work of Dr. King, they weren't a magic wand that erased over 300 years of the impact of slavery and Jim Crow. That requires intentional unwinding, to recognize that you have people like my mother's family who her parents, her brothers, her sisters didn't go to school beyond the 8th grade because the state of Mississippi didn't find it important to educate black children, and while the Catholic Church did, only to the 8th grade. Their opportunities were limited. When you had neighborhoods like Jackson Ward that I represent, that was once the Harlem of the South, decisions were made to cut that neighborhood in half by a highway and segregate part of that neighborhood away from everything that they needed. Those were intentional decisions that were made, rooted in this community doesn't matter. And so part of the nightmare has been the very things used to try to erase the legacy of Jim Crow and slavery have now been weaponized against that progress. I'll hold that up. And when you see the President of the United States deride the very things used to try to eradicate the legacy of Jim Crow and slavery, to divide again, to wedge, to sow division. This is old as time. Because the history of this country has been, every time we make progress towards the ideal, there's backlash, and it involves 3 things: violence, propaganda, and voter suppression. My great-grandfather lived through the first backlash. A man born on a plantation, his parents enslaved, who was exercised the right to vote after he was given a literacy test, got all the questions right, and heard the registrar say, and this is the only time you'll hear me use this word is in a direct quote, "I need more questions because this nigger got them all right." Because he was on a list, do not register this man to vote. My parents saw the second backlash to the civil rights movement. We're in the third backlash now. And what the backlash involves is propaganda that breaks up coalitions, whether it was a coalition of newly enslaved black men and poor non-landowning whites who came together during Reconstruction to rebuild this nation. The backlash to that involved racial terror lynchings, the lie of white supremacy, and a rash of voter suppression laws that completely ignored the 14th and 15th Amendments. The backlash to the civil rights movement of Dr. King was a Southern strategy that intentionally carved a wedge between black and white communities, intentionally to suppress the vote, and the murder of our leaders who fought to change those laws and to change the system. We're in that backlash right now. And we have a choice, and Dr. King spelled it out. We decide where we go from here. We decide, is it more chaos and division and hatred and propaganda and violence and voter suppression and tyranny where we pit one group against each other to stay in power? That's one choice. Dr. King gave his life for community, where we come together, where we work together, where we uplift each other, we care for one another, we love one another, and we live up to the ideal upon which this country was founded. He died for that because some people found that idea dangerous. We, the Congressional Black Caucus, stand here today recommitted to making his dream a reality. We won't give in to the nightmare. We will not give in to the chaos. And not only will we fight the chaos, we will fight for community. But we can't do it alone. Just like the civil rights movement in response during Reconstruction, just like the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s, it required people coming together from all walks of life, putting aside hatred and division, loving their neighbor and their enemy. We can do that. We need a little love today. We need a little light in the darkness. We need community in the midst of the chaos. We have to do it because while we are fighting the same fights that our parents, our grandparents, and our great-grandparents fought, we cannot leave those fights to our children, our grandchildren, or our great-grandchildren if we expect this country to survive. Because what Dr. King also recognized that now human beings hold the power to destroy each other and to destroy this planet. If we don't get a hold of our hatred, a lot of lives will be destroyed. That is not what Dr. King wanted. That is not what people elect us to do. They elect us to help people and solve problems. They elect us to focus on community. Let's not give in to the chaos. And with that, I yield back.
The gentlelady yields.
Mr.
Does the
Speaker,
gentlelady have a motion?
Mr. Speaker, I move to adjourn. I move the House adjourn at this time.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate.